For Andrew here, he's gotten top 8, of course, at this regionals, top 16 actually at Orlando regionals, and so, of course, playing now for his first regional championship victory, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, imagine taking home your first regional top 8, right? The first time that he makes it into the top cut, he could be winning. He is one of our 2 finalists, and his team is really, really interesting. We've seen Tornadus paired with Chiyu before, but, I'm sorry, Terrapagos paired with Chiyu before, but having Tornadus for Tailwind, and all the speed support is really interesting to me. You have the booster Speed Energy Flutterman with Icy Wind, Choice Scarf Chiyu, and then you also have this really interesting Swords Dance Urshifu to kind of punish teams that rely a little bit too much on a Moongus. And so I think that there's actually a lot of really interesting choices on this team, despite the fact that, like, it is some Pokemon we've seen before. I think the specific choices, both in the Pokemon, the moves, the items, etc., are all really unique. We saw how much work Hyper Beam put in that semifinal set.
Absolutely. Now taking a look at Rajan's accomplishments. He is no stranger to being in the finals before, losing in the Toronto Regional Finals back in 2018, having finished in top 4 and top 8 of regionals. He's come so close to winning regionals in so many different years. This might be his chance to secure his first championship title.
Absolutely, and Pittsburgh Regional top 8 was actually, it was 2023, but it was this season, so this is actually Rajan's third
top 8. Wow,
yeah, I
that's
know,
right.
because I knocked him out. Sorry about that, Rajan. But here he has another chance to take home the title with this really cool Miraidon team that we've seen a couple of times on stream. It's a restricted Pokemon that people were underestimating going into this event. People said, hey, Miraidon, it's not only is it not really top 5 restricted, it's not even better than Koraidon. But Rajan and some of his friends have, I think, shifted that narrative quite a bit, and we've seen the power of this Terra Electric Choice Specs Miraidon when paired with these other powerful supporting Pokemon, Whimsicott, Farigiraf, Ogre Pawn, Incineroar, as well as the supplementary damage from Ursaluna, Blood Moon.
This game will be a lot about speed control. There's a lot of speed control from both sides. Fluttermane with Icy Wind, Tornadus with Tailwind on one hand, and you've got Whimsicott with Tailwind and Trick Room with Farigiraf on the other hand. So whoever will get an early speed advantage, I think, can really snowball the game out of control, right? Rajan has a lot of different leads that you can go with. For example, you could go with Whimsicott plus that Miraidon. You could go with Farigiraf plus Miraidon as well. So one of the questions for Rajan is, do you want to commit to Tailwind or do you want to commit to Trick Room, actually?
That's right. I mean, Ursaluna, Blood Moon, and Trick Room is so scary for Andrew's team, but can he get there? Incineroar and Miraidon are the leads from Rajan against Terrapagos and Fluttermane on the other side from Andrew.
So right now, I think the Terrapagos slot is in a kind of spooky position, right? Because it's Choice Specs, and so Fake Out can easily get launched in that spot. Miraidon can start just dishing out massive amounts of damage. The idea behind this lead is ideally to just go for like Icy Wind and then start going for Terra Starstorm, for example. You do have to worry about Fluttermane obviously being able to deal super effective damage with that Moonblast, but this is a little bit speedier of a Fluttermane, not exactly the most offensive variant.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because normally we've seen a lot of players be just really willing to hold their Terastallization because they don't want to get knocked out because with Terra Starstorm. But here, it's actually a little bit different because Miraidon, it's not so tank. Like it'll probably take some chip damage at some point, and so maybe you don't really mind just like, I don't know, like becoming weak to Terra Starstorm. You could probably afford it a little bit more here. So there's a lot going on here. Miraidon's threatening a KO with Terra Electric Volt Switch. You can also use that to get out of Fluttermane, but it can take some damage in return. Terrapagos can Terrastallize to overwrite the terrain. The turn is starting here. We do see a Terrastallization right out of the gate. Which Pokemon is Terrastallizing?
It is going to be the Miraidon to start.
That's right, Miraidon going to Terra Electric. I like this decision a lot. You not only increase your damage output, but you also turn off your Fairy weakness with Miraidon. I think Miraidon's probably got to be the star of the show here.
Totally.
And on the other end, here we see a Terrastallization right away on turn 1 before any Pokemon is even attacked. Here is Terrapagos Terrastallizing, turning off the Terra Shell, saying, you know what, I don't really think I need to take Not Very Effective. I'll probably take a Fake Out this turn anyway, and importantly, removing the Electric Terrain. One of the only abilities, maybe the only ability in the game that can actually remove the terrain. So Miraidon just lost a huge chunk of its damage output.
Here we go. It's going to be Fake Out. That's really safe into the Terrapagos slot. Moonblast is going to come out, but because of that Terra, Miraidon will survive, critically actually doing less than half, and so could have survived anyway, but Volt Switch now, of course, will do increased damage here. Actually targets the Terrapagos, and that's a lot of damage on what is the star on Andrew's team.
Where did Terrapagos' health go? Aaron, it was there a second ago. Where is it now? Well, that might look pretty bad. Okay, it is pretty bad. Oh, an interesting Whimsicott switch in here. The thing about this is that, like, Terrapagos can still probably get an attack off because it's you know, still got a decent chunk of health left. The problem is that, like, Incineroar with the Assault Vest is actually a really good matchup against this Terrapagos, just taking meaningfully less damage. So Whimsicott can set Tailwind, but the Icy Wind from Fluttermane could make things a little bit difficult. Like, it's also unclear if Incineroar will pick up a KO for here. I feel like it probably won't, but it's Incineroar, so you never really know. So
I was going to say, if it was, like, really invested in attack, like, Flare Blitz actually gets that knockout, and you just remove the Terrapagos immediately.
It's Assault Vest, so it could be, right?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, Terrapago's taking that much damage and not getting anything off in return doesn't feel great, but Whimsicott's going to offer the Protect here, so this, of course, will conserve its Focus Sash. We're just going to see another Terra Starstorm come out, but like you mentioned, Wolf, it's Assault Vest on the Incineroar, so really don't expect it to do that much damage.
Yeah, we saw a non-Terra Starstorm KO and Incineroar earlier one hit. I think this will do meaningfully less. Let's see, does this Choice Specs boosted? How much is it going to do?
Oh my god, that's really not very much.
It's not a 1-hit KO, and U-turn coming out, I love this from Aaron. Aaron basically saying, you know what, Incineroar, sorry, not Aaron, Rajan. I got confused with all the Mirai we've been seeing. Rajan saying, you know what, yeah, Incineroar, I don't think it can get the KO, so I'm actually going to use Incineroar to switch in another Pokemon safely. Miraidon hits the field once again. The Tornadus does not have Protect. It also does not have the Focus Sash, so Rajan just has so much offensive pressure here.
Do you ever just Tailwind and Discharge?
Yeah, I do, baby! Let's go, Miraidon. Let's see a magic trick. I would love to see some Pokemon disappear here, because there's no way around that. Yeah, you can also go for Tailwind and Volt Switch, which is pretty safe, but it feels like removing the opponent's speed control in a single attack just feels so valuable. And we're actually seeing something really interesting. You can see there's Chi and Fluttermane in the back for Andrew's side, which means there's no physical attacker, which means
that's right.
Incineroar is looking very
so
dangerous
good
with that Assault Vest. Yeah, we're seeing kind of one of the weaknesses of loading up on having all one type of attacker, physical or special. Obviously, Andrew does have the Urshifu, but if he doesn't bring it to the battle, there's not that many Pokemon that can hit these bulky Assault Vest Pokemon.
Totally, and Chi-Yu can't Protect either. It's a Choice Guard variant, so you're just going to get dunked on. Tailwind is going to come out, so I think right now from both ends, you just have to kind of set up that Tailwind, right? Make sure like you don't get outsped by the opposing side, so very straightforward decision. Is it that Discharge we were talking about?
It's a Volt Switch. I think this is a safer play, right? You can serve Whimsicott's Focus Sash, and actually, Aaron, something we didn't mention is that by leaving Tornadus alive, Rajan is now exerting Encore pressure.
That's right.
Tornadus, it does have Terra Dark, but Terrapagos is already Terastallized, so it doesn't have that option. There's no Mental Herb to stop the Encore, so even though like Miraidon, like it didn't, like it doesn't actually like KO both Pokemon, maybe it doesn't need to.
It helps if anything, because now Tornadus is in this awkward spot where it's like, yeah, you're out of the field, but you're facing down Encore. You don't just give Andrew 2 free switch-ins into Fluttermane and Chi-Yu immediately.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the question I also had is, what do we think Rajan's final Pokemon is here? Because I think you could make a good argument for, of course, that Blood Moon Ursaluna, but you of course could also bring that Cornerstone Ogerpon.
Yeah, and there
it is.
Ogerpon.
That is a really good final Pokemon in terms of offense.
Really nice. Yeah, Chi-Yu, it takes a lot of damage from a super effective Ivy Cudgel, and even Fluttermane. I mean, like Fluttermane, it doesn't have the booster energy anymore, and yeah, like I think it's possible it could actually take a meaningful bit of damage from the Ivy Cudgel. With a critical hit, it would definitely KO, and I think we've seen even some Fluttermane go down without a critical hit, so it feels like Rajan is really in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, and so you can see the Icy Wind hover here and the switch into Chi-Yu. The idea behind this is to let you don't get Encored, but Rajan could go for something like Encore plus the Ivy Cudgel into the Tornado slot. I think that play is relatively safe.
Yeah.
If you do that, of course, you do end up eating up the Icy Wind, but you still have all of your Pokemon, so maybe you're okay just getting a knockout now.
That's right. Yeah, I think that like Rajan, because he didn't discharge into his own Whimsicott, Whimsicott's Focus Sash is still intact.
Right.
The reason that's relevant is that Rajan, if he plays his cards well, he might be able to set up a second Tailwind and allow Miraidon to fully
just sweep. If you get another Tailwind up when Tornadus' Tailwind is gone, that's it.
I mean, Discharge will end the game on its own, right? And also, crucially, Aaron, something you pointed out earlier is that, yes, Fluttermane Moonblast did not KO the Miraidon because, actually, no Encore coming out here. I'll get back to that Miraidon point in a second. Incineroar coming back in here saying, you know what? I think you're going to switch out. I have even if you don't switch out, Ivy Cudgel into that slot most likely will pick up a KO and just preserving the fake out pressure for another turn because Incineroar is so safe here. What's it going to do? Take a Moonblast from no item, no boost Fluttermane? It's not in any real danger here. As Chi-Yu switches in, the question is, we know that Fluttermane went for the Icy Wind here. It most likely will move first. The question is, what did the Ogerpon go for? Spiky Shield. Actually, okay. It's a bit of a surprise, but actually Rajan preserving the sturdy and stalling out the Tailwind.
Critically, exactly. You were just talking about the point of setting up another Tailwind. Well, this stalls out a turn from both ends, but now Chi-Yu is awkwardly stuck on the field. Fake out plus Ivy Cudgel now into Chi-Yu feels really safe. What do you do to get around that,
There's no Ghost Terra because Terrapagos has already used the Terastallization. There's no real way around that, and if you switch into Tornadus to try and survive, well, then you've lost your Tailwind setter. That Miraidon situation we talked about becomes a lot more threatening. So I love that play from Rajan. He does not know what the last Pokemon is. It could be a Moongus, it could be Urshifu, and so he says, you know what? I'll get fake out pressure this way. Like, I'm not in any danger. Let me just make a really smart and safe switch. And you can see Andrew reacting here saying, I can't lose Chi-Yu. It's like one of my only offensive Pokemon. If I lose Chi-Yu, I've got Fluttermane with, not that much special attack, and Tornadus, who only has a flying move and is clearly very bulky. So, yeah, like, feels pressure to save the Chi-Yu, but now, if Tornadus goes down this turn,
Tailwind just from Whimsicott.
Yeah, like Tornadus needs to survive
here. Oh my
here.
goodness.
Incineroar might even be able to take another one. Fluttermane is one of the strongest new Pokemon introduced, but Incineroar doesn't care about the Assault Vest.
Ivy Cudgel gets the KO onto Tornadus. That's not really a surprise, but that is huge because Rajon has conserved his Whimsicott. So it is a 4-2 lead for Rajon right now. Andrew, however, does have two really fast Pokemon, but the problem is you have to deal with a potential second Tailwind from that Whimsicott. You've got to deal with Miraidon that's waiting in the back as well. Electric Terrain is slowly going to expire, but Rajon's done such a good job of setting up Miraidon as soon after Terrain expires, right? And so I think Rajon has all the pieces right now to win this game.
That's right. Rajon said, you dealt with my first wave, but here's number 2. Spiky Shield comes out. The Spiky Shield U-turn play is completely perfect here. There's no way for it really to get punished because even if Incineroar were to faint here, which, you know, is a possibility, right? It doesn't really matter because then you get a free switch into Whimsicott as the Tailwind expires. Tailwind, Ivy Cudgel, and Chi-Yu is completely safe.
And the game's
you
just
can see
over.
the Icy Wind. I don't think
this is not going to KO, but there's no way.
Yeah, Rajon has just managed his resources exquisitely
perfectly, honestly. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Something really interesting is that Rajon has basically 2 Focus Sashes with the Focus Sash on Whimsicott and actually the Sturdy on his Ogerpon.
Yep.
So he has 2 Pokemon that each need to take 2 attacks to get KO'd, and yeah, just like with so much, like he doesn't have that many defensive switches, but he has so many Pokemon that need to take like multiple attacks, Incineroar, Ogerpon, Whimsicott, that he was able to really control the speed of the battle at the pace that he wanted to go.
I just love watching this. Like, Tailwind just peters out, so Whimsicott comes out just at the right time. I mean, at this point, like, Miraidon maybe isn't even necessary to win the game, but you just go for Tailwind, you go for Ivy Cudgel into Chi-Yu. There's no way Fluttermane's going to be able to pull it off, and so Andrew recognizes that. To me, this game just started off with turn 1. The fact that Terrapagos ate up like 60% of its health and did no damage, you can't let that happen again, and I think Amoonguss not coming out from Andrew's end punished it a lot because he had no defensive switch in on turn 1.
That's right. There's the only Pokemon on this team who really feels even remotely comfortable taking a Volt Switch, let alone could possibly survive one, is that Amoonguss.
Yeah.
And I really like Rajon's decision to say, hey, like this Fluttermane, I could Terra and Volt Switch it, but I think I'd rather get the damage on Terrapagos because once your restricted Pokemon takes a ton of damage, it just becomes so threatening. And also using Incineroar to position, we're seeing the value out of having a Pokemon that can switch after your opponents have already moved. Whimsicott, Miraidon with Terra, Ogerpon. These Pokemon don't want to take Choice Specs, Terra Star Storm, but with Incineroar, they don't have to. Incineroar can take that damage and then switch. And so it was just such an effective strategy, I think, and I'm not surprised to see Rajon taking game 1 here.
Yeah, I think like one of the things we were talking about before this game started and before we started casting was, you know, Amoonguss. Amoonguss feels really weird to bring into a matchup when your opponent has Miraidon, but you have that Terrapagos to get rid of Electric Terrain for one pivotal turn. So if you're able to do that and land a key Spore, that could be huge. What you obviously then have to worry about is, let's say Miraidon's out on the field, you get rid of the terrain, but then Volt Switch comes out, Amoonguss pivots in, and then suddenly, or Ogerpon, right?
Yeah.
I think the fact that there's Whimsicott and Ogerpon, 2 things that are just naturally immune to Spore, is a really big deal in this matchup. And Incineroar also looked amazing in that game. I mean, it soaked up so many hits and was able to apply so much pressure.
I mean, what you're talking about is you're saying, like, hey, I feel like Andrew needs Amoonguss to deal with the Miraidon, but you're also saying, hey, I think he kind of needs Urshifu to deal with the Incineroar.
Right.
And that's 2 Pokemon that didn't come to the battle. And, I mean, Fluttermane was good. I feel like Chi-Yu didn't, I mean, it wasn't really given the opportunity to do much, but, like, if you start bringing Amoonguss, Fluttermane, Tornadus, like, Terrapagos, you can quickly run into a position where if anything happens to Terrapagos, your damage output is so limited. Fluttermane with no, like, it's not trained to be offensive, it's trained to be support. Tornadus trained to be support. Amoonguss trained to be support. And a lead switch up from Rajon, switching to Whimsicott and Miraidon.
And this time Amoonguss has hit the field, so the Amoonguss here does 2 things, right? First of all, if you are able to go for the Terra Star Storm, or go for the Terra, get rid of the terrain, then you can Spore, for example, right now into the Miraidon slot, but Miraidon could just Volt Switch and go out into that Cornerstone Ogerpon that's in the back, and so, here we go.
Walking in quickly. Andrew, this could be your tournament life on the line.
This is huge.
Take some time, think about your moves. Like, this could be it. Maybe you have the feeling. Maybe you say, I know that this is going to work.
Okay,
and
I think he heard you. He's taking it a little bit slower now.
Okay. Thinking about the move a little bit more, taking a second to lock in, that's important. These players, this is their dream. They came here and they said, I want to win this tournament. So many players came in hoping, wanting, praying to win the tournament, and this could be the moment. Andrew's still in this. He's down a game, yes, but it's not over. Interesting. Terrapagos terrestrializes first. No terrestrialization from Miraidon. A different tact from Rajon this game.
Okay, so this is going to get rid of the Electric Terrain for 1 turn, and of course Miraidon will be able to potentially Volt Switch and then bring it back in. But critically, there's no Spore coming out here anyway. I expect Volt Switch. Ooh, okay, Whimsicott protects. I was going to say Volt Switch here and then go out into Ogerpon seems relatively safe, which would cover for Spore. That's exactly what we're seeing here. And that's still so much damage, but this time there is that Pollen Puff coming out.
That's right. The crucial thing last game was that I'm totally blanking. Terrapagos took too much damage. Ogerpon switches in. Rajon does not know that Andrew went for the Spore, and he almost did go for the Spore. So he brings in the Ogerpon, saying, I can't let a Pokemon fall asleep here. Terrastar Storm is going to do a ton of damage and will break the Sturdy on the Ogerpon. And Amoonguss, if it had gone for Spore, this game would be extremely bad. Just a lot of damage. But Pollen Puff keeps the Terrapagos' health high, and all of a sudden, Andrew is in the lead.
I love that self-Pollen Puff. I think it's, it feels so tempting to go for that Spore, but you saw Ogerpon in game 1, so it's so likely that's going to be in the back. There's no way Rajon just lets you get that Spore off, and so really great decision-making to end up going for that Pollen Puff. The problem for Andrew in that first game was that Terrapagos just ate up so much damage and then was just kind of one hit away from getting knocked out, essentially. Now you're applying a lot of pressure. That Starstorm will get the knockout onto Ogerpon. You could just Pollen Puff into Whimsicott here as well, and so what does Rajon do right now?
I think he Terra rocks Ivy Cudgel and Moonblast into the Terrapagos. It could be a mistake, but you're not going to Rage Powder in front of 2 Grass-type Pokemon, right? The thing is, that's the question for Rajon, right? We as casters, we have the very nice advantage of we're not under the same pressure as these players. As Whimsicott goes for Tailwind, it looks like Rajon wants to go for an Ivy Cudgel into the, looks like the Amoonguss actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so a good bit of damage on the Amoonguss here. That might be Terra Electric Discharge range, and because Terrapagos is already Terastallized, the advantage of that for Rajon is that there's no other clear way to override Electric Terrain anymore. There's no Rillaboom on this team. Aaron, where did Whimsicott go? Where did Ogerpon go?
It's about to go back in its Pokeball, and we're going to see the final 2 Pokemon. We know Miraidon's one of them. So.
Oh, man, what a play.
This is so different from game 1. I love it. What a finals we're watching right now.
And it all hinged on that turn 1. If that had been Spore, this game, I legitimately think would be over.
Yeah.
I think if it had been Spore into the Ogerpon switch.
Because you double up onto the
Moonblast, Ivy Cudgel, there's no risk.
Exactly.
Like, you switch it, anything switched in would get KO'd because Amoonguss is the only Pokemon that can switch into that double up. I think Miraidon comes back out. We already knew this. Is it Blood Moon or Saluna, or is it Incineroar? What did Rajon switch to? It is
Incineroar, okay.
So that means that there is no ability to go for that discharge here unless, well, I shouldn't say no ability. It's just not an ability that I would...
Assault that's Incineroar. Yeah. How much do you think that takes a discharge?
I can take a discharge, but it probably can't take multiple. We have a full HP Terrapagos here. We have Amoonguss still very healthy. This game is not over. We have seen what Miraidon can do, but Rajon probably has to end this game before the Tailwind expires, or I think that there's going to be a lot of trouble in Miraidon land.
Yeah, I think this turn is really key to pay attention to. It's just like, what does Andrew do to respond, right? Because like Rajon has gotten the setup what he's wanted. You've gotten the Tailwind up, you've gotten Miraidon out. I think Miraidon in an end game when you don't know exactly what's in the back can be a little bit spooky, but the upside for it is that just really strong electric type attacks are so consistent to go for. And so, yeah, I think right now for Andrew, you're looking to just make sure you don't lose too many resources too quickly. And so protecting is one way to start with this, but looks like he's considering going for a Pollen Puff as well. Protect makes sense.
Yeah, this is also a bait, because if Rajon decides to go for a Terra here, then Miraidon will no longer be able to survive the Terra Star Storm. So Rajon has Fake Out Pressure only available on this turn. Here's the booster energy. Did Miraidon Terra? This is the first trap. If Rajon fails it, he will most likely lose the game. Let's see what happened here. There's no Terra,
no
but
Terra,
who did he target? This is important. He probably needs to take a KO this turn. Fake out into the Amoonguss.
Okay.
I feel like it has to. Oh no, to the Fluttermane. I'm sorry. Is it Electro Drift? It's Electro Drift.
Oh, but it goes into Amoonguss.
Ah, that might be a problem, Aaron.
I think so, because another turn of Tailwind now gets stalled out for nothing. You can protect Fluttermane now, even sacrifice Amoonguss, then bring out Tornadus, for example, set up Tailwind, and so yeah, I mean. To your point, there was at least no Terra from Miraidon, so it's not like you get baited into it, but yeah, like you're really looking to just stall out the opposing speed control. There's 2 turns of Tailwind left right now, so the question is, can Rajon make enough out of these 2 turns? He's still applying a lot of offensive pressure right now. We're actually just seeing the Icy Wind hover here. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like
just
you
Rage
have such a big lead that you probably can turn this around. The question is, how do Miraidon and like, it's a little bit tricky because Miraidon here, if it takes an Icy Wind, then it's probably slower than the Fluttermane, but it's still probably faster than Terrapagos. Rajon's got to make a lot to think about this turn. The other question is, how offensive is this Incineroar, and can it potentially pick up a KO? Rajon is deciding to lock in his Terra. He says, you know what, it's now or never. Turns off his weakness to Ice, turns off his weakness to Fairy, gets a damage boost, but I mean, unless Icy Wind misses, he's going to be very vulnerable in the next turn to this Terrapagos, especially with, we saw Tornadus being able to Tailwind is still available on the other side.
Yeah, Rage Powder is going to come out, and so Electro Drift should get the knockout onto that.
You think so?
Yeah,
maybe just barely.
Yeah.
It is a resisted hit.
There is no true resistance against Miraidon is what I've learned after this weekend, and it is going to demolish that Amoonguss. Amoonguss is going to fame, but I think it's done kind of what it was aiming for. Critical hit.
Maybe a little overkill.
Just insurance.
Amoonguss might need 2 trips to the Pokemon Center to recover from that one. Amoonguss going down here. The question is, will Icy Wind connect? It is 95% accurate. That is not a guaranteed Pokemon. It does connect on both. So the speed modifiers are getting a little bit wonky here, folks. Miraidon is at -1 speed, which is 2/3 of its original speed stat, but it's still
got one turn of Tailwind,
so
that's right.
4/3, I think, of its
Flare
original
Blitz
speed
comes
stat.
out, and it does not knock out Flutter Mane. Not super surprising, especially with these speed booster Flutters, but this now gives you another turn. You can bring out that Tornadus, you can even protect the Flutter Mane, set up Tailwind, then get the Terrapagos out, and with Terrapagos still being relatively healthy, this is going to be really tough for Rajon, I think, because all you're looking to do is just get Terrapagos back in, and then Terra Starstorm once again.
Yeah, the only question is, let's say that this turn, let's say that somehow Miraidon and Incineroar were able to take out Tornadus and Flutter Mane in the same turn, and the board state stayed relatively even. Could Incineroar possibly, with the Assault Vest, with knockoff, is it possible
that it beats the Terrapagos?
1v1 the Terrapagos? I don't think so, but you know what? I've learned not to doubt Incineroar. That's another Pokemon I've learned never to count out. So
I was gonna say, like, in this position, you intentionally double up onto Flutter Mane, exactly, so you don't give the free switching. Because if you give the free switch into Terrapagos, Tailwind is set up, Terra Starstorm comes out,
it's over.
That's over.
Yeah, so Rajon has the awareness for that. Here's the protection of the Flutter Mane. Let's see what Rajon went for. I do agree that I think that if Rajon goes for the Electro Drift into the Tornadus, this game is most
immediately
likely over.
I think so.
I think so as well. So actually, Rajon wants to not take a KO this turn.
Yep.
Good job not
Electro
taking the
Drift
KO.
into the Flutter Mane. There it is.
It's still going to be so difficult, but Rajon has kept himself in this game a little bit. Let's see here. Knockoff as well. That makes sense. Like, oh, a critical hit. It probably doesn't matter, folks. I'm almost wondering, I was like, oh, could he side knockoff? But it doesn't help with the speed issue, right? That's the end of the Tailwind from Andrew's side, and we see the value here in speed control. Just like you called out, Aaron, you said this battle will be determined by speed. This battle is being determined by which Pokemon moves first, and Andrew decided to put all his eggs in the Terrapagos basket, bringing basically 3 support Pokemon, and it's paying off in a major way.
So much damage.
And Aaron, I don't think that Incineroar is going to be able to do this one on its own.
Yeah, speed drop to add. It should be a double knockout this turn, but then Terrapagos comes out and just clicks that Terra Starstorm. I love the adjustment to Amoonguss. We were talking about using it mainly for that Spore, but actually just one single Pollen Puff on turn 1 alone was huge.
Yeah.
We're going to see the Flutter Mane finally faint here, but yeah, I think it's more than happy with what it's accomplished in this one.
Flutter Mane did his job. That Icy Wind was important. The stalling of the tail was important. Knockoff comes out. I actually don't think he's going to pick up KO.
Ooh, yeah,
just
4
barely
HP.
hangs in there. To be honest, even if it had KO'd,
Terrapagos just wins anyway,
like you have full HP Terrapagos, and the reason why that full HP is so important is because it means that Incineroar can never kind of 1v1 here, even if the circumstances have been a little different. Like that Pollen Puff turn 1, that was the play that I think ultimately decided it. And it feels like, Aaron, both these games have kind of been decided by how turn 1 went.
Yes, I feel like watching when this Miraidon composition play out, it's like the decision-making behind what you do with Miraidon on turn 1 is so key. If you get it right, you just blow up the game and get such a big lead. But if you get it incorrectly, you can lose a lot of momentum because Pokemon like Incineroar and Whimsicott can deal a lot of damage in certain scenarios, but it's not like they can just threaten everything on the field, right?
That's exactly
often Miraidon is volt switching out in order to go to something else. I also wonder how differently this game would have looked if there was a Blood Moon or Moon in the back.
Incineroar. It feels a little bit surprising to leave it behind, but it was an option if Rajon knew that he was going to kind of be forced to play in the Tailwind or Bust kind of mode. But Aaron, we are going to game 3. After that game 1, it was so dominant. I thought, well, you know, maybe Miraidon just beats Terrapagos. And now after game 2, I'm thinking, well, you know, I feel like Terrapagos might actually be pretty good against Miraidon. These players have got to feel so incredibly nervous. They are under so much pressure. It's one thing to start the set and say, hey, you know, I can afford to lose 1 game. Neither player can afford to lose a game anymore. Both players have their dreams on the line. They have their hopes, everything that they've worked towards, the thing that they have been chasing this whole weekend. And it all comes down to this moment. 20 minutes or less will decide the winner of the Indianapolis Regional Championships. Each of these players' first regional victory and the first tournament of Regulation G.
And there are so many mind games. What are the lead adjustments? Do you consider, if you're on Rajon's end, bringing that Blood Moon Ursaluna instead? What's also been interesting is kind of the lack of the early speed control, right?
That's
right. For example, in game 1, like no Tornadus, no Whimsicott being led, and there's some adjustments here. For example, like you could just go with Whimsicott plus your Miraidon. You could go with Tornadus plus the Terrapagos and just exert a lot of pressure immediately. And so there's a lot of different things to consider here. Amoonguss felt like a really key adjustment in that last game, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back because that single Pollen Puff actually changed
the game
everything.
Completely. I could not agree more. As you said, Rajon needs to get the positioning right with his Volt Switch Miraidon. He needs to take the KOs he needs. He needs to do the damage. He needs to switch into the right Pokemon at the right times. And that Amoonguss offsetting that first initial Volt Switch changed everything. So we are getting ready to jump into Game 3 here. This is it, folks. This is the game that will determine who wins the tournament. Rajon going back to what he used Game 1, Instant Miraidon, and a new lead out of Andrew, Tornadus, and Terapagos.
Oh, the Terapagos slot right now was once again exposed to the combination of Fake Out plus Electric Terra and Volt Switch, for example. So I wonder, I mean, like, do you just eat up that damage again? Because that feels so bad.
It's so scary, Aaron, because let's say you are like, oh, Terapagos, I can't risk it. Switch out into Amoonguss, Tornadus takes a Volt Switch. That's your speed control.
That's it.
And that was how Andrew won the last game. So Andrew locking in so quickly. He knows what he wants to do. He feels it in his heart. He feels that he knows what is best. But Rajon taking his time. Will Rajon get this call correct? This turn could determine who has such a huge advantage going on to the rest of this game.
Yeah, I think I give Rajon the advantage right now, honestly, because the Terapagos is so exposed, right? And so, yeah, the question is whether or not, like, you know, Rajon doesn't really have a reason to click Fake Out onto the Tornadus. There's that Cobra Cloak, so Terapagos is going to switch out. We know it's Amoonguss coming out, but this means no offensive pressure from Andrew's end this turn.
No Terra, Fake Out into Amoonguss. Gonna take a little Rocky Helmet chip here. What is Tornadus going for? It's most likely the Tailwind. It is the Tailwind, so that's 4 turns of Tailwind on Andrew's side, but what will he give up in exchange?
There it is, the Volt Switch into Tornadus, and so that's an immediate knockout, and of course that first turn of Tailwind, you don't really get anything out of it, and so a quick knockout here. This also means that you can pivot back out into that Whimsicott and now protect 1 turn, stagger Tailwind by 2 turns, and then suddenly you have so many extra turns of Tailwind to work with, and so I personally expect a Whimsicott to switch in here, and there it is.
Good call, Aaron, and we haven't even talked about how this Incineroar is still a massive threat.
Yeah.
It's already done a good job of pressuring the Terapagos, and something we haven't seen just yet is using Knockoff to remove the Choice Specs to remove the real damage from the Terapagos. Terapagos is strong, but it really wants some kind of a boost before it starts doing massive damage, and so here it's pretty risky. The other thing, though, that we have to consider is that this could be Terastalize, Terapagos, and Spore the Incineroar.
Yes. That would be, I don't know, I'm like thinking about it and I feel like Andrew's honestly pretty far behind in this game right now, so I feel like maybe you need to make a big play, especially because this is the Assault Vest on the Incineroar, so I would not expect Terra Starstorm to get the knockout right now, and so, I don't know, I do feel like Andrew is pretty far behind after that turn 1. It's so important to pay attention to when the Terra comes out here, because removing that terrain just for 1 turn can have a huge, huge payoff. We're seeing Andrew considering a bunch of different options. He's going to offer Rage Powder and Terra Starstorm. So we'll see. I mean, like, here I would expect maybe Protect and Knockoff, maybe Protect Flare Blitz, but I think Protect is really safe. You don't want to feint to Terra Starstorm plus potential Pollen Puff, and what this allows you to do is now have multiple extra turns of Tailwind in this end game.
Absolutely. It was a little bit risky from Rajan, but saying, hey, you know, even if you do Terastalize, like, that at least makes it so Miraidon can be a bit stronger later. I don't have to worry about my terrain being removed. The knockoff redirecting the attack there, that actually could end up playing a role, because Electro Drift, despite being a special move, actually makes contact, therefore activating the Rocky Helmet. But the thing here, Aaron, is that you've burned another turn of Tailwind, and if you want, you can actually Encore the Whimsicott and say, hey, I'm going to make it so you can't Protect next turn, and I'm going to make it so that you can't KO my Whimsicott this turn. I think it's an Encore the Whimsicott. Encore the Amoonguss, excuse me, to ensure that your Whimsicott's Focus Sash remains intact.
Yes.
So you actually have a couple of options here, and I think that which one Rajan decides to go for could really, really be important. His Incineroar has taken a ton of damage, but Andrew this time actually saving the Terra, not wanting to use it preemptively, not wanting to give up that Terra Shell or the ability to overwrite the terrain.
Yeah, that's really important because that's your one big chance in this game, right? And so I think if you commit to it too early and then the Miraidon just comes back in, that's it. No more potential for Spore for you. So makes a lot of sense. Also, of course, you get that single target damage. Incineroar's actually going to
be
pivot out,
right?
Yeah,
it is Ogerpon. Interesting. Okay. Ogerpon switching in, and actually we didn't see Andrew Terra, an amazing play, and the Encore from the Whimsicott. That's amazing, Aaron. Not only does he switch Ogerpon into a resisted hit because this is a normal move until Terapagos Terastalizes, he's Encored Amoonguss into a move that can't work against his 2 Grass-type Pokemon.
That's right, and so Amoonguss now is completely useless. You called the Encore potential earlier, now Amoonguss is in such a bad spot, but what do you do? Are you really going to switch it out into your final Pokemon?
It's so risky. I'm not sure you can. But, and do you use your Terra now? Looks like the answer might be yes, you do. But also, Aaron, this is the final turn of Tailwind, and Whimsicott has zero ways to go down, except if Rajon side targets. But probably won't be doing that. That means that Rajon will not only be able to match the Tailwind, he'll be able to overwrite it basically with his own. He's got such a huge advantage in the speed of the battle, but he needs to find a way through this Amoonguss so that Miraidon can do the damage that it needs.
Yeah, I'm wondering in this position, like, you're not at risk of getting knocked out, so no need to set up Tailwind with Whimsicott yet. You could theoretically, like, Moonblast and plus Ivy Cudgel into the Amoonguss spot. And I think that probably just knocks out Fluttermane, right?
Yeah, probably. So Amoonguss is going to switch out here. It's going to activate that Regenerator ability. It's possible we can take a powerful electric move later. Fluttermane switching in. This is another option for speed control, but it won't outspeed Miraidon in Tailwind, so it's only, you know, somewhat there. Let's see what happens this turn. We are probably, I think we saw, seeing the Terastallization from the Terapagos. Andrew waited so long, he conserved it so well, but now he feels like he needs it. He needs the spread damage. He can no longer wait to overwrite the electric terrain. He needs to go for this now, and frankly, I agree. I think this is his only way back into the battle. And for me, the question is, will Ogerpon go down to this Terra Star Storm?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, it did so much damage that first time around.
There's also the option for a Moonblast drop, I realize.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Oh, Terra Star Storm is just going to come out immediately. Does it knock out the Ogerpon? We didn't see Tailwind come out here. Could have been Tailwind Ivy Cudgel. Ogerpon will faint.
Oh, man. That's a huge knockout. The Ogerpon goes down. What does Whimsicott go for? It's Moonblast. We know for sure. It's Moonblast into the Terapagos. How much is it going to do?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, but that definitely puts it in range of a Miraidon move as the Tailwind ends. So, oh, Aaron, we're so close to the end of this battle. The question is just how much damage is Miraidon able to do? Rajon is betting it all on Miraidon. He can go for Tailwind and Electro Drift into either Pokemon, picking up a KO. If he commits Terastallization, he'll most likely get the Amoonguss that switched in as well. But if he goes after the Terapagos and Amoonguss switches in,
and then Icy Wind from
then
Fluttermane,
he might lose the speed advantage. And so that's something he has to consider. He can also go for Discharge, but the question is, even with Terra Electric, will it KO the Terapagos? It's unclear. I don't know the calcs there. There's so much going on here. Does he want to commit Terra? Does he not want to commit Terra? He knows he takes one Moonblast. Aaron, there's so much going on here.
There's so much, and I think this turn alone feels so critical right now, right? So you can see the option, considering pivoting out into Amoonguss and then targeting the Fluttermane. There is the option right now to just straight up go for Tailwind. I was wondering, like, is Discharge ever a possibility
I think maybe
here?
Terapagos switches out. If Rajan locks in Terra Electric Discharge and Tailwind, he will win this game, because he'll be able to go into Incineroar, fake out before his own Discharge, and clean up the game with it. Here's the Terastallization from Rajan. This is the last player to use it. He saved it to the end of the game. The only question is, what move did he go for?
Did it target the Amoonguss? Because if it did, and an Icy Wind comes out.
This could get really scary, really fast. Is it Electro Drift? Is it Discharge? Is it Volt Switch? Is it Tailwind? First, we do see the Tailwind from Whimsicott. Rajan now has 4 turns with this speed advantage, but what move does he go for?
Oh, it's going to be Volt Switch. Okay, but into who? Is it into Fluttermane?
Amoonguss.
Oh, it's into Amoonguss. Okay, that's a lot of damage.
Not enough damage, though. Miraidon going back here. What did Fluttermane go for? It'll be able to pick up a KO on the Whimsicott for sure. The Incineroar's low HP, so a Moonblast will get that too. Incineroar comes out.
This is so close. I believe we saw the Icy Wind lock in from the Fluttermane. Let's just double check and make sure. Intimidate, not relevant right now. Oh, no, it was the Moonblast, actually,
it was Icy Wind. Incineroar goes down here. That's the end of Incineroar, but the question is Miraidon going to be enough to close out this game? Now that it's Terastallized, it's weak to Terra Star Storm.
I think you might have to Discharge, right?
I think you might have to. Otherwise, Fluttermane goes down, and then, yeah, it's actually Rajan's only option, I think.
Yeah, like, you could protect Whimsicott, because, like, you're going to survive a Moonblast, you eat up an Icy Wind.
Yeah. You Electro, but the thing is, if he protects Amoonguss and you Electro Drift, then you have to take a second Icy Wind the next turn. I think you need to Discharge this turn. I don't see another way forward. And Discharge, it just depends on how strong it is. I have no idea. It's the weakest of Miraidon's moves, like just by virtue of the base power and the spread damage, but that doesn't mean that it's weak by any means.
Oh, this is so close. Both players fighting for their tournament life right now. Miraidon has to lock into its final move here. Once you commit that move, you cannot switch. So you can see the Rage Powder here. That does not cover for the Discharge option.
Aaron, if he doesn't protect Whimsicott, no!
Whoa, Whimsicott protects!
He protected!
Oh my goodness.
If he discharged, he could have won the game without it, but Rage Powder comes out, redirecting any moves that that Miraidon might want to go for.
Is it Discharge?
Is it Discharge? It's Discharge! Oh my goodness, Rajan's Whimsicott might be the key that keeps him from winning this battle. The thing is that when Discharge hits multiple targets, it is weaker. It should KO both Pokemon this turn, but the problem is that Rajan's own Whimsicott is reducing the damage of his discharge.
Yes, will the Terrapagos be able to survive? I think so.
It could be the difference maker. We saw how much Volt Switch did with no terrain.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Oh man, Rajon could still win with a double protect, but if he just let Whimsicott go down there, he would have been in an amazing position. Andrew, it all comes down to if he can KO both Pokemon this turn. Rajon's thinking about it.
He gets it!
Oh my god, Miraidon has the speed advantage. How much is Discharge gonna do? Electric Terrain boosted, Hadron Engine boosted, Terra Electric boosted, Choice Specs boosted, Discharge. Is it enough damage? It is!
I didn't even need the double protect, but Rajon claims its first championship in Regulation G. Rajan Bal, he's made it to top 8, he's made it to top 4, he's made it to the finals, and now he has claimed his first regional championship victory here in Indianapolis.
There were so many restricted Pokemon on the players' radars going into this. Calyrex, Terrapagos, Kyogre, Groudon, Corydon, Zamazenta, Zacian, none of them matter! The only Pokemon that matters is the fastest bike in the West, Miraidon!
And you can see Rajon is in disbelief. That game 3 was so close. So much about this composition is positioning the Miraidon perfectly. This thing's damage output is just ridiculous. I don't know what I'm going to tell you, man.
There, and I'll tell you the truth. That was an incredible performance to Rajon.